Why the best indicator of your business future stability and ultimate growth is not past stability but moderate volatility in a relatively recent past. Till 2016, compete.com looks immune to the upheaval, meaning the sudden violent change. The same team on the head of the company has run comfortably the company over a decade. Many pundits meaning experts, argue that compete sturdy police system which exercise a tight control on its mailing list of customers and staffs will survive the chaos and upheaval of the world, obviously due to complexity of the era we are living. By the way, the rise of complexity is due to globalization and internet, characterized by a high increase of unpredictability and a drastic decrease of predictability. Now, compare with Semrush, another web giant, a powerful and versatile competitive intelligence suite for online marketing, for SEO, pay-per-click, social media, and video advertising, research for marketers. Compete look positively stable, but these appearances were deceiving and were an illusion. Today, compete is in symmetry. Yes, you heard it right. Compete is in a graveyard. As matter of fact, in December 2016, Compete and Compete Pro platform has been shut down because there were no way to be able to fight their own survival. Now, what comes to mind now is, what is the most insightful question here that pops in our mind or that comes to our mind? How seemingly stable compete.com turned out to be a fragile system or have a fragile model, whereas always-in-turmoil Semrush has so far proved robust. Let me ask the question one more time, which is a very insightful question. As Jean-Jacques Rousseau put it, the best way to judge someone is not through its answers, but through the question you ask. Let me ask this insightful question again. How has seemingly stable compete.com turned out to be a fragile system, whereas always-in-turmoil Semrush.com has so far proved robust? Here is the answer, my dear listeners. The answer is Compete was exhibiting only pseudo-stability, its calm facade concealing deep structural vulnerability, whereas Semrush's chaos paradoxically signal strength. This is, by the way, counterintuitive. More than 5 years of continuous and never-ending trial and error what served to decentralize the system and bring about a more balanced power sharing structure. This is the way it functioned in Semrush.com. Along with Semrush, small size has an administrative unit, to put it the way Steve Jobs one put it. He said Apple is nothing more run inside has a unit of small startups. This is very counterintuitive, meaning from the outside it looks very large, but inside it is decentralized in small administrative unit, but organized also in a sense where an error in one part cannot spread in the whole system. You see? Okay. In another way, it is a system that knows how to handle mistakes and error. But anyway, let us come back, since we are dealing with the wall of uncertainty. As I was saying, along with Semrush, small size has an administrative unit. These factors added to its durability. In Compete, the ruling team sought to control variability and versatility of the operating staff, replacing the lively chaos of tinkerers, meaning people who are continuously taking action, meaning trial and error. A tinker is somebody who is continuously in a mode of trial and error. They replace it with top down rather than bottom up, right? And what they seem to forget is that, after all, in any good system, it is the front line that produces the bottom line, not top down. Now, I'm talking from a standpoint of a business person. They have what I call a Soviet style structure. Instead of bottom up, it was top down. This rigidity made Compete much more vulnerable to disruption than Semrush, right? By the way, anything I'm saying here is very counterintuitive. Most people won't see things like that out there. They'll see things in terms of analysis. But guess what? These may look rational and coherent, but deep down, it is not. There is a word, I won't use it today, but I'll use it next time. It's not, I mean, it hasn't worked like that in the past. It's not today that it's going to work. It's not today or tomorrow that a good functioning system, which by the way operate in a complex world, will function so easily. No. But Compete's biggest vulnerability was that it has no recent record of recovering from turmoil. Businesses that have survived past bouts of chaos tend to be vaccinated against future ones. Hence, the best indicator of your business future stability is not past stability, but moderate volatility in the relatively recent past. Hence, the title that I gave before. Now, here are the 4 big ideas to be retained and implement, and must be implemented right away in your business. Number 1, on its face, centralization, meaning top-down, seems to make the ruling class more stable. But that stability is an illusion. Be careful. We are living in the world of extremistan. For those of you who haven't listened to audio about extremistan and mediocristan, I recommend you to go back and listen that episode. It is extremely important. Why? Because we human today, we simultaneously inhabit 2 worlds, the mediocristan and the extremistan, right? The mediocristan is a world that is stable and that doesn't change, and the extremistan is a world where there is a continuous and never-ending change. And the world we are living today, as I said before, we are more today living in the world of mediocristan, unless maybe you are in religion, things are stable and doesn't change, it's always the same thing. But in the real world, as we are talking, meaning ecological world, things change. Now, as I said, on its face, centralization, meaning top-down, seem to make the ruling class more stable. But that stability is an illusion. Hence, decentralization is a matter of fact. Decentralization is a must. And as a matter of fact, let us just take, for example, the most stable country in Europe. It is Switzerland. for the last 500 years, Switzerland is the most stable country in Europe, right? And in Europe, and this stability is due to its decentralization in 4 semi-autonomous cantons. In another word, people are better neighbor than roommate. That's one. 2, the second big idea is that the divergent tales of Compete and Semrush demonstrate that the best early sign of instability are found not in historical data but in the underlying structural properties of each entity. Let me repeat again. 9 out of 10 people out there will be running after data analyst or after expert. No, you don't need that. I say it again. This is very counterintuitive. The second big idea. Let me repeat myself again. The divergent tales of Compete and Semrush demonstrate that the best early sign, the best early warning signs of instability are not found in historical data, but in underlying structural properties of each entity. In another word, focus on the structure on the structure of your business rather than trying to predict an external stressor or risk that is going to affect you. That's just what I'm saying. But 9 out of 10 people out there are always trying to focus themselves on the source of risk, meaning the source of risk here is the random variable. And since we are living in a world that is complex, by definition, you cannot predict the complex system. What do? Since you know that you don't understand the world, what do? You care more about how you react to things that happen to you, how you respond to them, how it affects you. In another, the most important thing is how you structure your system. How you structure your system. If you structure it in a sense where it will be fragile, the result will be what's happened to Semrush. If you structure it in a sense where it can be robust to adverse event, that's the first key sign that you can survive. Right? Because your survival stems from the fact that you are able to handle time. Why? Time brings mistakes. Time brings error. Time brings incomplete information. Time brings volatility. Time brings change. Time brings option. Time brings, and I call all these, all what I just called right now, these other brothers. If you don't like one, you dislike all of them. If you like one, you like all of them. But here's the flip side of the coin. We have never been able to predict our errors, neither our mistake. Right? Hence, I call this disorder cluster. In another thing, an error is something unpredictable. If it were predictable, it won't be an error anymore, since beforehand we know it already. But that's not the case. Okay. Now, let me keep going. Past experience can be extremely effective when it comes to detecting risk, cancer, crime, and earthquake, right? But it is bad bellwether of complex political and economic events, particularly so-called terrorists. For those of you involved into mathematics and probability, but terrorist means the rare event that has consequences that are devastatrix, that are monstrous, right? Such as what you see, the financial crisis of 2008, or a company that goes bankrupt, or a person who plays Russian roulette and loses its life. Now, as I said, these large events, these rare events are highly unlikely to happen, but enormously consequential. This is what is key. And guess what? They are unexpected. Since they are unexpected, you don't know when they can happen. In another, your system should be built in a sense where it is robust to certain class of events that are not computable, in another, that are not predictable. And guess what? We are living in extremism today. 9 out of 10 experts out there will always try to squeeze the extremism into the mediocre stand. No way, it won't. It is like, as I say way back before, it is vastly more profitable to mistake a stone for a bear than a bear for a stone. Because if you mistake a bear for a stone, you end up in his stomach. And in economical life, this is what is happening. Even if you are in the wall of investment. Okay, now, in other, since you are still playing, since you are still in the ground and playing, if you don't pay attention, it can happen tomorrow. It can happen the day after tomorrow. It can happen in 1 year, 2 years, or 3 years, or in 5 billion, or in 5 billion of years. This comes back to what even Ray Dalio, one of the world best investors alive today, said. He said, I am not in a business of probability of small probability of ruin. I want zero probability. I want the probability to be zero. Why? Here is the reason. The reason is quite simple. If you are exposed to ruin, you will eventually go bankrupt. You will be ruined. Just you don't know when. I mean, the key here is that the probability has to be zero. And what you don't even care about the probability. You care about the payoff, the consequence. That's what matters the most, since the event is unpredictable. You have just to structure your system in a sense where it is robust to any adverse event, and most importantly, can even benefit from it. I don't want to extend, but let us stay to the subject. For most people, the evidence of risk comes too late to do anything about it, and more sophisticated approach are required. And this is the reason why optionality profit has been created. Yes, we help entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs, decision makers, policy makers, how to make a decision in a world we don't understand, how to domesticate randomness and benefit from it, how to build a system where mistakes can occur without threatening the system, but most importantly, users feel for improvement, right? 9 out of 10 models out there are just, most of the time, these models do not replicate themselves just because they teach you how to succeed, right? But guess what? Over time, you realize that our knowledge today is what? Is continuously revised and change. Why? Because things are changing continuously. Whereas wisdom doesn't change. For those of you who have the privilege to be part of this podcast, you are at the right place, especially in this era. Now, let us keep going. Thus, instead of trying in vain to predict such rare events, it is much more fruitful to focus on how system can handle disorder. In another word, to study how fragile they are. Although one cannot predict what events will befall a business or a system, one can predict how events will affect a business, right? Instead of trying to predict the source of risk, which, by the way, is very difficult, you focus basically on the structure of your system. Now, what is more important here is that things that are fragile respond to shocks in a non-linear fashion. Now, finally, it is an honor to have you as part of this podcast. But the most important thing I want you to realize here is I write this not for the many, but for you. Each of us is enough of an audience for the other. Lay these words to heart. Take these words, please put them into action and see how your business or your approach to any investment or your approach to of making decision on the incomplete information and incomplete understanding will bring you forward in life. It is an honor to have you part of this podcast. You are magnificent and you were born to win. Thank you so much, guys. It was a privilege to have you part of this podcast, and in the next 2 days you'll be having a new one that will be released. Thank you, guys.